Hi, I'm Shelley, and welcome to Higher Conscious Thinker, where we combine an accumulation of science, philosophy, mental health, and history research. Today, we're going to discuss consciousness. So, when we talk about consciousness, how we're going to define it when we talk about it through all these presentations, we're going to talk about consciousness and how it's defined as the observer. It's a state of awareness, a type of eternal evolving energy, if you will. Correlated terms, synonymous terms are life force, spirit, soul. Even though spirit and soul have this more religious connotation, so some people don't take that seriously and they don't want to connect it to consciousness because they want to keep it more scientific. But it doesn't really matter how you think of it or how you refer to it. Just know that's how we're identifying it. Now, so the complications with the language, consciousness is such a complex term, and how it's applied and identified. It can be an umbrella term, if you will, and it can be applied to various different things. For example, language and terminology changes over time, and as knowledge increases through discoveries, so do the terms. So our language is evolving constantly, and so are medical science and science breakthroughs and discoveries. And when we talk about consciousness, it wasn't too long ago, less than 100 years ago, people did not, they even said, oh, babies do not have consciousness. Consciousness is something that's later developed. And I guess they were correlating that with an intelligent, the ability to care for oneself or to have the intelligence to, I don't know, survive or care for oneself. But then it can't be applied. You can't, when you name something, you negate something, you box it in, tell it what you can, it cannot be, for an example. And that's one of these terms, consciousness. You can't do that because then, the argument came out, well, what about our dogs? Do our dogs have consciousness? Of course they have consciousness. And, of course it's easy for us to say now, but back then they were like, no, don't be silly. Only humans have consciousness. And they couldn't name it. They couldn't pinpoint on what exactly we're doing, what we're talking about. And now, even it's accepted because we're made up of energy. Quantum science says when we break it down on a molecular level, we are nothing but energy vibrating. And so, with that being said, a rock can have consciousness, but I mean, of course, a rock can't think and walk for itself. We're not talking about consciousness in that matter. So, and just to get a little bit more history behind the term consciousness, the term, and even in the early 1990s, the term was only applicable to philosophy. It was not taken seriously in the fields of science until recent breakthroughs in physics and neuroscience and medical sciences did it become a word thrown back into science and have become a scientific field to study. So, when we talk about consciousness and how we relate consciousness, we as human beings, as Homo sapiens, we live in the third dimension. And in our physical reality, how we're defining consciousness, you are currently experiencing consciousness in the form of a biological life form in the third dimensional world to gain experience, to gain knowledge, and to evolve. And the human body, as well as the brain, serves as a vehicle, and it's a tool which is made up of energy, and the body is manipulated through this conscious energy. So your body's made up of energy, and it's manipulated through a different conscious energy. And so studies in neuroscience and physics conclude that the brain does not produce consciousness itself. And you may have heard of all these different arguments come out. Scientists discover what chemical produces consciousness. Scientists discover the electromagnetic field produces consciousness. It's dopamine. It's this, all these different things that come out. But here's the thing: yes and no. They're tools. Consciousness uses the brain as a tool, and the body as both the brain and the body as a tool and a storage device. So, with that being said, consciousness is going to manipulate what it has access to and what's available. It's in these research studies that are coming out. I mean, you might as well say gravity causes consciousness because that's being right, just as right as he's saying magnetism causes consciousness. Because yeah, it's a form of what we know. It's applied to. It's a force of it's a force of the energy forces of the world, which we describe in physics that make up of the theory of relativity and what have you. So. that being said, we are experiencing the third dimensional world through our senses, perception, and our imagination that are influenced and triggered by external and internal factors. And we're going to get into that in a second. What are the external and internal factors? However, just know that your human body, we're in this third dimensional world. We're experiencing through our senses, our perception, our taste, our smell, everything, all our perception and our imagination, because neuroscience and these science articles that are coming out have showed that we're developing what we're seeing now, what we're seeing instantly, presently, in the future, and our minds are constantly adjusting to the picture. We're imagining and building and creating it, if you will, the reflection of what we see. So right now I'm sitting in my living room, and my brain is going to automatically build this image as I move around, because it's going to build on what it thinks is next to it because of memory, of program, and it's a tool of how it works. Now, a lot of times, and that's what sometimes tricks us and sometimes scares us, is because if somebody's hiding or if something's out of whack, or something. Some people are better at pointing it out than others, of course, but um, they're like, wait a minute, you're not part of my reality I built. What are you doing there? I mean, people don't think of it like that, but you're using your imagination to build what you're seeing. Your brain neurons are making these connections, predicting the future, if you will, constantly, as your brain's getting back through your eyes, because it takes time for your eyes to reflect and build that image to your brain. So your brain's already built that image. Your eyes are just reconfirming that image, if you will. Okay, so with that being said, just think of the third dimensional self and the third dimensional world as just one expression of reality, and it exists simultaneously and in unity with other dimensions. Think of it like a piece of fabric that makes up a blanket or a sweater, or whatever you want. They're interconnected. It's that one piece of fabric that's representing the third dimensional world. That's just one expression and there's other dimensions. And the reason why human understanding is limited, and which is why it's hard for us to conceive of these other dimensions. That's like expecting our dog to understand the complexities of our job. Making phone calls, planning for the future, the consequences of our actions over a long period of time. They don't have these concepts developed. So they're not going to understand why we do what we do. Same thing, and they're not going to build this world, and they're not going to even imagine what we can do or why we do it, because they can't conceive of it. Okay, same thing here. Humans, we can only conceive of so much. We're still evolving and transforming. Our species is going to be so much smarter, hopefully in 300 years from now. So, with that being said, consciousness continues to evolve even after death. Our bodies are vehicles, so there's no physical body necessary for energy to continue. Okay, and this is what we're talking about when we're talking about consciousness as a form of energy. Just as the universe does not need a brain to maintain and store memory, you don't either. Turns out, of course, we have these brains that are limited to us in this physical life, but just remember that we are energy in constant transformation. So, when we talk about the third dimension, our physical reality, our human thoughts and emotions, what really tickles our ego here. Our human thoughts and emotions are influenced by external factors and internal factors. The external factors being your environment, your geographical location, temperature, humidity, elevation, pressure, weather, and the surrounding energies. Whether you're in a city with a bunch of human energy all around, nothing but concrete, or if you're maybe you're in a mountain range with a bunch of wildlife, a bunch of plant energy, not a lot of human energy, that gives off different vibes, different types of energy, different senses. And I'm sure you felt this, whether it pleases you to go to a park or go to a garden with a bunch of beautiful flowers, and that feels good to you. You're vibrating on the same level. So all of these are acting, they're being stimulated. The temperature, elevation, pressure, all that are working at the same time, making these external factors influencing your thoughts and emotion. Oh, it's hot out here. Oh, it's dry out here. Oh, I could use a sweater. All these things, okay? That's thoughts and emotions. the pressure. Oh, I got a headache, or what have you. The energy's going around you. They're existing simultaneously with internal factors, which are biological, genetic, hormone production and regulation, exercise, diet, lifestyle, daily habits, cultural tradition, society, because cultural tradition and society, they have your mind programmed to what to expect, how to perceive the world, how to act, what's expected of you. All these are your preset program, if you will, just like a computer program. Here's your program. Here's how you work. Here's how you function. Here's how you perceive life. That's what cultural tradition and society. Because already they're saying, hey, connect these neurons. We already have these neurons connected. This is what we figured out. This is the way we want you to do, act, and think. That's why babies born in France that are not, introduced to English right off the bat, you can't expect that baby to know English, right? Unless you teach it or introduce, you have to be cultured. And same thing, if you don't teach the baby French, it's not going to know French, right? So, same thing. You can be born in France and not know a lick of French. And maybe you were raised in an all English household, so English speaking household. So, that being said, how you're programmed, your lifestyle, your daily habits, what you do on a daily basis, and your diet and your exercise, because your body, it's a chemical, you have to keep it chemical balanced, if you will, to make sure, because you eat too much sugar, that has an effect. Maybe you drink caffeine on a daily basis, and all of a sudden you quit it, and then you have these headaches. That is a side effect, okay, because your body's changing its chemical chemistry. Your body expected this, and now it doesn't release this because your body was ready for that chemical, right? So, same thing with diet and exercise. Getting your blood, how much does your blood flow? Getting oxygen, getting those cells revitalized throughout your body, and you do that through movement, through exercise. Get those your heart rate up to get pumping throughout your body. And also your genetic and biology, that has a lot to do with your internal factors, how you're programmed, how you think. So all these have an effect. So when we talk about these external and internal factors, they exist simultaneously. They're constantly triggering our thoughts and emotions, what we think, how we feel. And consciousness, when we talk about consciousness, now when you reach a state of awareness, and you can do this with awareness techniques, and that consciousness, the true self, is the observer over these thoughts and emotions and understanding why they are caused. So, with talking about thoughts and emotions, how we take control of the reins, meaning how do we take control of our thoughts and emotions? We can learn to control them by practicing awareness techniques. And understanding that awareness and understanding that our thoughts and emotions are triggered by these external and internal factors. And awareness exercises, such as but not limited to breathing exercises, meditation, chakra healing, nature walks, elemental therapy, any kind of positive intentions or exercises uses to raise your vibration, make you feel happy. So this takes time, dedication, and practice. Much like going to the gym, you can't, if you want to drop 20 pounds, you're not going to do it within a week, and you're not going to, well, healthily, you're not going to, do it in a day. It takes time, practice, and dedication. Same thing with these techniques. You can't expect to meditate once and then have a miraculous vision or a breakthrough, okay? It takes time, dedication. It seeps in, and then all of a sudden it seeps in so much that you're like, wait a minute, I no longer doubt this because I see the evidence before me. I see it happening all through my life. You just have to appreciate it, note it, and appreciate it. So with that being said, we're talking about raising your vibration through positive intentions and practicing awareness techniques. You can also initiate the law of attraction. And the law of attraction is basically attracting what you desire. And also the law of attraction, especially if you have vibrations, you're going to attract, especially if you have higher vibrations, maybe you're going to attract other people. Maybe they have lower vibrations than you, or what have you. Maybe you're not exactly on the same level, and maybe you're on the same level as some of them. But that's what it's going to attract. You're gonna attract followers. Maybe a lot of people are going to start following you. You're going to be an influence, if you will. And Raising your vibrations that also reduces stress. It has an overall physiological effect on your body. Of course, your body has energy fields around them. In them, we're made up of energy. These are also known as auras as well. That's a term you can use too. And so when we talk about raising our vibrations and the law of attraction, just know that there's also things that don't vibrate on our level. And here's the thing: is maybe we're not in sync when we're not vibrating with them on a different level. It does not make one superior or inferior at all. Okay, that's only the ego distinguishing what's superior and inferior. It just means you're not vibrating at the same level. You're not in sync. So, for instance, an example, maybe you just cannot stand the color purple. Maybe you just think it's awful. How dare anybody wear that color? It makes my head hurt. And then you see somebody with the purple shoes and walk in the door, and then your first intent is to push them down, take off their shoes, and destroy their shoes. I mean, that's a little bit overboard. You don't have to like everything or everyone per se. Here's the thing: acknowledge it, appreciate it, understand that, hey, I don't like this because this doesn't please me in this way. Okay, that's fine. I don't have to like it, nor do you have to act upon it. You just don't look at it if it bothers you. Move away from it. Take yourself out of that situation. If people are bothering you, or if something is bothering you, or maybe you don't like something. Maybe you don't like I don't know, people with hats, that maybe that bothers you, or clowns. Take yourself out of the situation. Don't get yourself in that situation. Uh, don't act with violence, even though a lot of people want to react. Their first reaction is, "Oh, I don't like it. It scares me." Fear, survive or flight. Some people want to fight, and uh, so and it triggers that fear triggers that. It's not that they really want to. Try to do harm to others. It's just that that emotion is triggered, and unfortunate consequences of that are violence, not being in control. So, with that being said, with these neuron connections in the brain, a lot of neuroscientists and physicists like to bring this up that to show how reality, we don't have such a grip on it, but there's laughable things and so much to admire and so much that connects, such as the brain resembling how the energy acts and connects, the neural connections in the brain versus the cosmos. There's a similarity to that, and it's on a larger scale, of course. But it's quite amazing. So bringing consciousness and to making it relative to the understanding of the universe. The universe is a feedback system of information that requires experience in order to grow and evolve. Everything evolves. Yeah, physical life, consciousness, all these are energy and forms of energy, and nothing devolves. So, for instance, our environments are constantly changing, right? Our the weather and patterns, climate, that's always constantly changing in our world. Our Earth has been through a series of heating and cooling, ice ages, etc. Constant change. And with that being said, even if the environment was like somewhat similar to back when Australopithecines were surviving, or Homo erectus were alive and around, moving around, we're not going to devolve back into that structure. Okay, it just doesn't happen that way. We're not going to go from Homo sapiens back to Australopithecines. It doesn't happen that way. Because we already, our brains are already formed a certain way. We're not going to devolve a different way because it doesn't work like that. Same thing with in the ancient Vedic, Eastern Vedic teachings, if you will. If you follow on this kind of path or in this relation, if you're more of a spiritual person, then you can relate this to the Vedic teachings, that a bad person, or believing in the reincarnation cycle, if you will, a bad person, maybe the person was here and they were a jerk and they only did bad things, and they weren't very productive people, and they were typically rude and mean to others. Not a lot of positivity there. They're not going to devolve into an insect or a rock, or a bad driver. They're just not going to do that. It's gonna be a cycle of you observe, you learn, and it's different. And you're not going to devolve. You're going to evolve from that experience. You're going to learn from that experience. And from how they teach it, the observer, always chooses how the best way for it to evolve. It's in control of its decisions to somewhat degree. This, not the circumstances so much as, okay, yes, I'll be willing to do this. I'll be willing to do that. Kind of like you are able to make the decisions in your life to now. Okay, yes, I will do this. Yes, I will do that. So, with that being said, the universe is a feedback system, a system of information that requires experience in order to grow and evolve. And we here are the physical world, a series of chemical reactions. Right here, we're made up of matter. Everything's made up of matter. Remote, me, everything. We're solid. It's our reality. We perceive it. We see it. So, with that being said, when you break matter down, it's made up of molecules, chemicals. Then we enter the atomic world. We get in the quantum world, we get subatomic particles. We break that down, and we eventually get these energy waves that vibrate at different frequencies. So, with that being said, solid objects are merely invisible vibrations, and matter is just the illusion of light and vibration coming at you. So, what quantum physics tells us is that reality is not at all what it seems. So we are made up of energy, and even though we look solid, we're not actually solid, because when you break it down, there's a lot of space in between these protons, these neutrons, and then the electric ring of the electrons, um, and so many things that we do not understand and how it works. So when we talk about scientific concepts of physics, we talk about quantum physics, mechanics, sciences, however you want to talk about it or refer to it as. But the quantum sciences describe the atomic and subatomic world, experience influenced by the observer, and quantum physics is all about probability. So it describes the subatomic world, and then you have the theory of relativity. Presented by Einstein, it unites time, space, and gravity, but it only can be applied to large objects, not the subatomic world. And through the theory of relativity, we get the Big Bang theory, the inflation theory, all that's derived from the theory of relativity. So, with that being said, the quantum world cannot be used to describe time and space as we perceive it. That's what the theory of relativity is. However, both the quantum sciences and the theory of relativity both describe how the universe came to be, how the universe exists, how the universe functions, the physics of it, if you will. But what we come to understand is the subatomic world. It can't be used to describe our world on our observable level. That's what the theory of relativity is for, and for larger, such as planets, black holes, which are constantly parts of the theory of relativity is constantly being proven right. Einstein's research in that matter of speaking. So, with that being said, both cannot be right to describe how the physical world came to be, such as the beginning, the end, etc. If you will, how the universe came to be, how it functions, how it exists, because they describe two different worlds, if you will, as functions. Both are right, but both are wrong, if you will, if you look at it that way. So, with that being said, we're jumping back to the tools that we have on our third dimensional self. So the brain, like I said, the brain does not produce consciousness, but is an accessible tool. And when we think of consciousness, I was really into a lot of the research projects, the medical research concerning organ transplant donors and receivers, because all these organ receivers were claiming, "Hey, I got a new sensation, a new feeling, a new craving, a new desire, if you will." That reflect off thoughts and emotions. Okay, it's an internal factor, and what it is they did studies and they linked these synonymous feelings, these thoughts, etc., these interests with the organ donor. So the organ receiver was linked to the organ donor. In fact, in this fact that they liked something, maybe they exchanged livers or something, or it was a liver or a kidney, and all of a sudden they developed these tastes that the donor had, and there's so many studies of that being done, and it seemed like to be a phenomenon. But we have to think about this intelligent life is within us. It's constantly working. My heart's working. It's beating right now. My liver's automatically flushing out those toxins. Kidneys are working to do the same thing, and I don't have to think about it. It's automatically doing it for me. Okay, uh, and that's great. That's the way it goes, and that's it. All intelligent life. That's internal factors that are stimulating your thoughts and your emotions. So you took so we can trade organs, basically, me and you. I can take all my organs out, give them to you, minus the spinal cord, of course, and in the brain. We're not talking about that, but we'll trade organs. We're going to develop each other's tastes, and that distinguishes the type of consciousness because I don't. I might develop your likes and your taste to some degree. However, I'm still going to be me, and you're still going to be you. And that's different. And that's what we can link to those organ transplants. Is you're transforming this intelligent, you know, this form of intelligence to another person, and it's linked to them. Now they're connected. Hey, okay. And that's how you can think of it like that. So, also another argument with the brain is that the electrical stimulation, you can't pluck or separate um, certain. It's the brain serves as a storage tool. However, you can't pluck certain information. You can't delete certain information or select certain information from the brain. That's not how it works at all. It's a very complex tool. And what they did realize too is they have this machine now. I do not know what it's called at the moment, but I know the medical study is out. They did it on a paralyzed female, a young female who he can't move, but they couldn't tell if she's conscious, if you will, or not. If there's any hello, if anybody's home type deal or not. So they hooked up this map of the brain where they could read different parts of brain activity that are going on, and they asked her to recreate her house as if she were walking through her house, and her brain performed this pattern that would be somewhat similar to if you were actually walking through her house. So with that being said, it showed them that hey, yes, she's in here. She just can't move any part of her body. There's a conscious being that is observing at the moment, um, and being uh, you know. Able to observe and communicate in that way. So that helps those people out. So, with that being said, we're going to touch a little bit on brain tumors, dementia, brain injuries. All these are just parts of the brain that no longer are accessible. And consciousness makes use of the tools that are accessible. So, with that being said, let's say you're born without a foot or a hand. Your body's going to work with what it has. Same thing here. Consciousness is going to work with what it has. And you might have heard of people, having parts of the brain removed, or maybe injuries, uh, uh, maybe something a rebar penetrated their skull and they were able to live, or maybe it was a gunshot that they were able to live, but they're no longer the same person. Maybe these parts of the personality have changed. Fred used to be nice, but now he's kind of mean, or he acts a little crazy. We can damage parts of the brain that don't allow us to logically think, and it stimulates the parts that don't process that well. And that's just the consciousness able to access what it can access. Okay. So, with that being said, a little bit about the brain. There are different types of memory, but we're not going to dissect that right now because it's such a huge topic. And just know that the brain, it helps stores this memory of this life, of our memories of this life, and that's to help us survive. It's a surviving mechanism that is needed to survive this life. And that's why we're not going to have memory of anything previous of this life per se, or any other circumstances such as. Uh, but just like the universe, consciousness does not need a brain in order to store memory. That's why when people have near death experiences or reach a different state of consciousness or awareness and shed the ego and are no longer attached to this body, if you will, the rhetoric, if you will, that they're able to have this consciousness and have this sense of knowledge that makes sense, and they're able to perceive this unity that that they're able to understand. So it's like a memory that they're able to have access to, but having information like that does not serve our lives, because if you can imagine, if we remembered all of our the memories prior to this life per se, um, then we would have trouble functioning and surviving in this life. So it's a survival mechanism as well. So also worthy of note is dreams, and once again, we're not going to get into right now dreams. We're just going to note that there are different stages of sleep. Brain activity varies at these stages, and it also, each stage produces different frequencies. Um, and with that being said, the frontal lobe sometimes goes offline and distorts reality as we understand it at certain stages. And at certain stages, a certain activity can happen. Certain stages we dream, certain stages we don't. And even certain stages our dreams can bleed out into reality if we wake up too fast. And that's when you can have hallucinations, if you will, into the day. When I'm talking about into the day, into when you wake up. Like if you wake up and 2 hours later you're not going to hallucinate from your dream, that's not a thing. It's something different. So with that being said, your frontal lobe goes offline and distorts reality. So that's why you would be in a dream, and you can dream that you're waking up. A typical dream is waking up naked in a grocery store, or waking up naked somewhere that you wouldn't normally do. And the only way that you would find yourself in these circumstances is if you were really drunk, or if you were, maybe if you're on something also, but also in your dreams, because it distorts reality. And when you're drinking, and when your brain reaches a certain level, your frontal lobe tends to go offline, and that's what distorts reality. And with that being said, that should make you feel better. Not every it's a distortion of reality. So it doesn't all mean something detrimental. So, what are the types of evidence for the continuation and the existence of consciousness for various planes, fields, and dimensions? So, the type of evidence that I would like to discuss today, of course, there's quantum science, physics, neuroscience, psychiatry, psychology. All of these fields of sciences are having these major breakthroughs. All these different articles that you can read, and they're testing it. And here's the thing: is the theories with multiverse theory, string theory, all these theory, Big Bang theory, inflation theory, theory of relativity. Parts of them can be testable, but we do not have the instruments, and that's why they're called theories, is because we don't have the instruments to test and replicate certain experiences, if you will. And that's why the quantum world shakes us so much, because we can't replicate those experiences either per se. It can't be predicted in such a manner as you could with the theory of relativity. So, with that being said, we have these quantum science that serves as evidence that consciousness continues. There's a continuation of consciousness even after the death of the physical body. Also, want to credit monks, yogis, and spiritual people who have entered these deep meditative states. And all throughout human history, you have these people who have reached this level of awareness, this state of understanding, and sometimes it's evident how they reached it. Sometimes it's not evident. It's just there's no particular path. It's people who are drawn to reach, I guess, this type of experience, if you will, this reaching states of awareness, realizing that there's more to this world than what it seems. And this is what I mean. And sometimes, and I used to be an atheist, so it's very easy for me to talk about and to explain, because as an atheist, even atheism is a belief system, because you're so dedicated to this. No, you're born, all everything is what you see, and then you die, you rot in the ground, and then that's it. You get one shot, then you're gone. Nothing ever happens. Nothing happens when you die other than your body rots, and there's no continuation of anything. That type of mentality. However, what I found, and I would dismiss all these religious teachings, because what I found about religion and how I viewed religion is, oh, okay, well, it's a tool to control the masses, or, it's a spiritual guidelines, made up, cultural control, which, I mean, which religion, when you add religion, that's what it is. Um, However, because had such a negative appeal, I denied the whole as a bulk and never did give these individuals the benefit of a doubt, if you will. And it wasn't until I started reading about quantum sciences and these experiments and how they're interrelated and linked, and also neuroscience, to what monkeys, yogis, and these deep spiritual people have been teaching, have been saying. And what really sold me is some of these yogis that they've never stepped foot into a university. These scientists, these neuroscientists, wanted to evaluate their brains, their knowledge, and how they knew what they knew. Because how they knew what they knew was baffling. They could tell you these quantum science concepts without ever having to had the knowledge introduced to them in the way that you know the Western culture, if you will, would have it, as in, hey, this is how you learn things. This is how you observe it. So, with that being said, they just blew me out of the water, the knowledge that they had, and that to me is proof too. And these reaching deep meditative states, what they experience, what they see, what they feel, and that's something that you cannot ignore. I mean, that's a piece of evidence, and if you choose to ignore that, you're not really doing science. You're just creating the reality as you want it to be. So, with that being said, we also have near-death experiencers, out-of-body experiencers, lucid dreaming, astral projection. All these are different state of consciousness, if you will. And if you read the testimonies from near-death experiencers, you can see that every single one of these experiences, they paint this foundational background. However, all of the experiences are different. Different people, different. It relates to the observer, whoever's having the experience. At their education level, etc. Near-death experience is not a cultural phenomenon. It's not a time phenomenon either, because they happen all over the world and throughout human history. And of course, it's the term near-death experience was not coined until 1975 by Dr. Moody, and what that term allowed us to do is label, hey, this is what that is. And the reason why in the 20th century, especially now, you see such a large community of people that are having these near-death experiences is because our medical science and technology has increased so much. It wasn't 2,000 years ago, you wouldn't see people running around with CPR cards, okay? It wasn't an everyday thing that people know. They didn't have epinephrine shots. They didn't have, electric paddles, or electric shock or an ED to in order to shock the heart into a shock if the heart had a shockable rhythm. So, with that being said, they didn't have all these medical advance in technology, and it's just now that we're getting to this. And here's the thing: is ancient humans who've had near-death experiences, they've been documented. They paint this world. It's common with modern day experiences. Okay, it's, like I said, the experience itself is different, but they paint a background, and the backgrounds are the same. And of course, I go through a different PowerPoint because I think this is a very interesting field. I myself have not had a near-death experience. I've done a lot of research, though, to understand what people were talking about. Because what really got me is that most of these people that had near-death experiences were saying that this life is actually more like a dream than what they experienced. They said that was more real than this life. They said this life is kind of like a dirty dream. If you not a dirty dream as in a nasty, but as an inappropriate, but as in a fickle dream, if you will. So, with that being said, you have all these things coming out, all this evidence, and worthy of note, talking about the evidence, such as the brain producing it through DMT. Of course, we're born. Scientists say that this DMT is released when we're born and upon death. And DMT release is supposed to be euphoric release, release dopamine receptors that bring us to a pleasant place. However, people who have near-death experience and also had DMT injected just to see if the experience could be replicated. They said it's not the same at all. So there goes that theory out of the water. And then also they said that the electrical brain activity of an NDE, whenever it's the electrical brain activity trying to grasp. That's not the case, because anybody who has hypoxic patients, especially, meaning they lack O2 of oxygen, they get kind of terrifying and horrific feelings and images that go through that and hallucinate horrific things. It's not a positive, pleasant experience whatsoever. And to be even more thorough in this evidence is that the more vivid NDEs came from people who were actually had no brain electrical activity, but I could verify what the doctor said, did, etc. during no brain activity. So that's some very outstanding evidence. And so with that being said, so brain damage, brain shorting out, and that's why consciousness is not found in the brain. DMT production and these near-death experiences cannot be produced by any kind of drug, hallucinatory drug, shrooms, LSD, peyote, ketamine, all these different things. They're not going to produce an NDE. They say it's a different form of reality, it's a different experience. So, with that being said, conclusion, consciousness is a form of energy that is constantly evolving, and the whole point is for us to gain experience and knowledge through these various life forms, to jump through different planes, fields, and dimensions. So everything everywhere is in constant transformation. Security and control, nothing but an illusion. So when we have when things are familiar, safety, security, all that is just an illusion. So and we get comfortable, and we get in this homeostasis, and somebody moves us out. We got to point a finger, we got to blame somebody, and then we got to get mad at it, right? So, and that's when we lose control. So here's a little fun a mind bender here. Do you ever wonder why you can watch your favorite TV series or movie and play your favorite game over and over again? And it's because it serves as a form of therapy. It is familiar, and you can predict what's going to happen. And with this, it gives you the sense of control. And what happens is the therapeutic part is because things are familiar, things are playing out the way you want and the way they seem because you already know. It's sending these positive chemicals in your brain. Your neurons are connecting in this way, and it gives the illusion that you're in control, and you can predict the events that will take place. So it's pretty interesting. And to sum it down, to getting on to the conclusions, the human purpose and the meaning of life is to project your imagination, create reality, and gain experience and knowledge in this life. And you can sail through this life smoothly by practicing awareness techniques, practicing positive intentions. All of these will serve to help elevate your vibration. So, with all this being said, I hope this was helpful. You can find more information and resources at www.higherconsciousthinker.com. Thanks.